When you go silent, you might think it's the end, but for the narcissist, that's the beginning of a whole new act. They can't stand the idea that you walked away without warning. They can't process that you've stepped out of the role they wrote for you. The submissive, the predictable, the emotionally controlled. You broke the script, and now they have no idea how to continue the show. That's when the panic starts. At first, they don't attack. Instead, they play nice. They reappear. Softly, a casual text, a sudden friendly DM, a shared memory. They call you by that nickname you used to melt for. No apology, no accountability, just emotional bait. They're not reaching out for closure, they're testing. They want to see, did you really stop caring? Or are you just being dramatic? If you reply, if you soften even slightly, if you send a neutral, they'll take it as permission. The door's still cracked open, then they come back full force. This time it might be an emotional version of themselves you've never seen. They talk about growth, healing, therapy. They hint at regret. They subtly promise change. Not directly, but enough to get you curious. And yes, it's tempting. This is the version of them you once begged for. But if you don't respond at all, if you maintain distance, neutrality, and zero emotional engagement, that's when the mask starts slipping. They'll move from sweet to subtly hostile. They accidentally like your photo and unfollow. They post passive-aggressive quotes. They reach out to mutual friends. They begin telling others how you abandoned them during the darkest time. That's when the flying monkeys show up. These well-meaning messengers approach you with phrases like, "He's really changed, you know. She said she still cares about you. Maybe you should give them a chance to explain." They don't realize they're being used. They think they're being helpful, but really they're just acting out a script, one you've stopped performing in. Meanwhile, the narcissist is watching. They sleep. If you continue ignoring them, their silent rage begins to seep through. Not through direct confrontation. Oh no, that would reveal too much. Instead, it shows up in vague social media posts, victim narratives, subtle digs. Why? Because to a narcissist, your indifference is the ultimate insult. They don't need your anger. They don't even need your love. They need your attention. And when they lose it, they lose their power. Ironically, that's when they feel they need you more than ever. Not because they love you, but because you're no longer under their control. Losing control feels like losing identity, so they escalate. Love bombing, guilt tripping, smearing, emotional baiting, all for one purpose, to get back into the position of power you just took from them. 1. The first tactic, playing innocent. I have no idea what's going on. When a narcissist starts sensing that something has shifted, that you're growing distant, emotionally flat, unbothered, they don't attack you immediately. That's not the first move. The first move is subtle, calculated. It comes dressed in warmth. They pretend they don't know what's happening. They play innocent. They act confused. They reach out with a soft message, "Hey, are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Feels like you're pulling away. Can we talk?" They pretend like your shift in energy is random or out of nowhere, but you know better. They know exactly why you've gone cold. They know you've hit your limit, seen through the manipulation, and are finally stepping out of their control. But instead of taking accountability, instead of facing consequences, they choose to play dumb. And it works because it targets something deeply human in you, the instinct to doubt yourself. When someone asks, seemingly with sincerity, "What did I do?" you start to second guess. Am I being too sensitive? What if I misread them? Maybe they genuinely don't understand. And just like that, if you begin to explain, you're back in the trap, because they're not listening to understand. They're listening to twist your words, poke holes in your feelings, and eventually say, "Wow, I think you're overreacting." Playing innocent is not naivety, it's strategy. It allows them to dodge responsibility while still appearing like the good one. It plants confusion in your mind and in the minds of others around you. She's probably just misunderstanding. Said he didn't even know what happened. Maybe it's just a little miscommunication. They build a new narrative, one where they are the baffled, caring, confused party, and you are the cold, distant, irrational one, all because you decided to stop playing along. And if you react with anger, if you say, "Stop pretending you don't know," they'll double down with the innocent act. "Why are you being so mean? I was just checking in, and now you look like the aggressor." You're back on the defensive, trying to justify your distance. That's the power of the "I don't know what's going on" act. It flips the script and puts you back in the role of explainer, the one needing to justify walking away. But here's what you need to remember. You don't owe anyone an explanation, not when they were never listening, not when they ignored you until the silence was too loud to bear. Their confusion is a mask, and you're not responsible for taking it off. So what should you do? You don't need to argue. You don't need to force them to admit. You only need to understand. They know, they just don't want to face it. That question, "What did I do?" doesn't deserve an answer, because if they cared, they would have listened before you walked away. If they were truly innocent, you wouldn't have had to leave in the first place. Their innocence is an act, a distraction, and you no longer have to participate in the scene. Stay silent, stay steady, stay free, because when there's no reaction, there's no show. And for a narcissist, that's the most painful ending of all. 2. The second tactic, from innocent bystander to remorseful sinner, the most subtle emotional trap. When the "I have no idea what's going on" act stops working, when you don't reply, don't soften, don't reopen the door like they were hoping, the narcissist shifts roles. And this time the performance is aimed not at your love, but at something even deeper, your compassion. They begin to play the part of the broken, regretful sinner. No longer wide-eyed and confused, they now become introspective, poetic, wounded. You start seeing vague, emotional posts. "I hurt the one I love the most." Sometimes you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. "If only I could go back in time." They don't mention your name, but you know. Every word is a spotlight aimed at your heart, and suddenly you feel that old familiar pull, not because you still love them, but because you don't want to be the villain. You don't want someone to suffer because of you. You don't want to be the one who walked away when they were trying to change. And that is exactly the trap. This role of the remorseful one is not about reconnection through love. It's about guilt. They don't offer real apologies. They don't take responsibility. They offer vague emotional confessions, just enough to stir your memory of who they could have been. They might even text you, "I get it now. I messed up. If I had another chance, I'd do it differently. All I want is for you to be happy, even if it's not with me." Sounds noble, doesn't it? But here's what to watch for. None of it is specific. They're talking about their pain, their loss, their regret. They don't say, "I did this, this, and this to hurt you. I understand that now, and here's what I'm doing to change it." They just keep the focus on their sadness, hoping your empathy will become an open door. True remorse focuses on the person who was hurt. Narcissistic remorse focuses on how hurt they look. Because in the end, this performance is still about control. Some even wrap their new mask in the language of healing. "I've started therapy. I'm reading about childhood trauma. Now I understand why I became like this." But if you look closely, it's still all I. There's no you, no action, no meaningful shift, only narrative. This is why you must hold your boundaries, externally and emotionally. You don't have to be cruel, you don't have to attack, but you must be clear. A vague apology isn't change. A poetic post doesn't undo real damage. A sad face doesn't erase years of emotional chaos you had to survive. You're not here to rescue the one who almost drowned you. You're not heartless. You're the one who finally broke the cycle. It's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to miss what could have been. That just means your heart still works, but you can have a kind heart and still choose to walk away. 3. The third tactic 3, I've changed. The redeemed sinner trap. After the "I don't know what's going on" act fails and the "I'm so sorry I messed up" performance doesn't pull you back in, the narcissist steps into their most refined role yet. They become calm, reflective, surprisingly mature. They start speaking the language of healing. I've been seeing a therapist. I've been reading books on emotional trauma. I'm working on becoming a better communicator. They say the exact things you once wished they would say. No more rage, no more pressure. Now they wear the mask of someone who's genuinely evolving. And of course, they don't ask you to come back. They say things like, "I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know I understand now. We don't have to be anything. I'll respect whatever boundary you need." Because they're not pushing, you let your guard down. You start thinking, maybe this time it's real. You even feel a little inspired. Finally, they're growing, but this is exactly what makes this strategy so dangerous. It's manipulation dressed as maturity. They're not doing anything wrong, and yet you feel pulled, you feel moved, curious, cautiously hopeful, and when you respond, politely, kindly, maybe just as a friend, they stay patient, they listen, they validate your feelings, they even offer a clear, structured apology. You feel safe again. But once you start trusting, once the emotional distance narrows, the old patterns return, quietly and slowly, because the core hasn't changed, only the packaging. This redeemed narcissist didn't transform because they truly woke up. They transformed because they learned that this is the only language left that might bring you back. They're not healing for themselves. They're healing to access you. And once you let them back in, once you begin to soften, trust, forgive, the power dynamic begins to reset. You feel managed, evaluated, obligated. You feel guilty for questioning them. After all, they've worked so hard, right? This is the most invisible trap. A narcissist who behaves better just long enough for you to re-enter the cycle. And this time, leaving feels even harder because now you look unreasonable. So what do? You don't need to attack. You don't need to test them. But you do need to ask, are they healing for themselves? Or just so I'll let them back in? Real change doesn't demand an audience. Real healing respects boundaries, even if they're painful. Real growth doesn't need proof through reconciliation. Let time do the proving. Don't listen to what they say. Look at what they need you for. If they're healing for them, your distance won't threaten it. If they're healing to win you back, it's not growth, it's a strategy. And you don't need to re-enter just to find that out. You already knew the answer the last time you walked away. 4. The fourth tactic, threatening self-harm. When nothing else works, when you don't fall for the innocence, when you don't respond to their remorse, when you don't come back after they've faked growth, the narcissist plays their most extreme card. They threaten to harm themselves. Not necessarily because they truly want to die, but because they know this is the last remaining way to control you. It often starts quietly. A late-night text like, "If you don't answer, I don't know what I'll do, maybe I should just disappear. Then you'd be happy. One word from you. That's all I need to stay alive." Or worse, they say they've taken pills, gone to the bridge, or left a note, and then goes silent. You try to call. No one picks up. Panic sets in. You're terrified. And just like that, you go back. Not out of love, not out of belief, but out of the paralyzing fear that you'll be blamed if something happens. You can't bear the weight of thinking you let someone die. This is exactly what they want. To tie you down with guilt. Suddenly you're responsible for their emotional well-being, their life, their choices. You shove your own needs aside, you override your boundaries, you step back, not out of desire but to keep them safe. But here's something to notice. They never threaten harm when they still have control. They only do this when they're losing it. Because this isn't about desperation, it's about domination through emotional blackmail. Yes, you're allowed to care. Yes, mental health matters. But you are never required to sacrifice your own peace and safety to save someone who doesn't actually want help, they just want you. If they were truly in crisis, they would seek real support. They'd call a hotline, reach out to a therapist, talk to professionals. They wouldn't hold their pain hostage and demand that you be the cure, because when someone says, "My life depends on your response," what they're really saying is, "I refuse to take responsibility for myself, so I'll put that burden on you." So what should you do? If someone threatens self-harm in your direction, respond with clarity, not panic. Share mental health resources or crisis hotlines. Encourage them to seek professional help. If you truly believe they're in immediate danger, notify emergency services or someone close to them. But you do not need to go back. You don't have to stay until they're better. Because the truth is, they will never get better if they believe pain is how they win you back. You are not a bandage. You are not a rescue boat for someone who chooses to drown in their own storm. You are a person allowed to walk away. Even if someone hurts because you left, that does not make you the villain. And if they threaten to die without you, that's not love. That's emotional blackmail. Remember, loving someone doesn't mean dying with them in a pit they refuse to climb out of. Choosing life, strong, clear, and free from guilt, is how you end the most dangerous narcissistic loop of all. 5. The fifth tactic, smearing you. When the narcissist can't control you, they control the story. When a narcissist finally realizes that none of their emotional traps are working, you're not guilted by their remorse, you're not softened by their self-improvement speech, you're not baited by their breakdowns, they don't just walk away quietly. No, they switch gears. And now, if they can't control you, they'll do the next best thing. They'll try to control how others see you. Welcome to the smear campaign. At first, it may seem subtle. A vague post, a concerned conversation with mutual friends, a message to someone close to you saying, "I'm just worried about her. She's not herself lately. I tried everything, but they pushed me away. I hate to say it, but something's off with him." The narcissist paints themselves as calm, rational, even heartbroken, and they speak first because they know whoever tells the story first usually controls the narrative. To the outside world, you start to look angry, unstable, cruel, heartless. Because while you're dealing with the trauma in silence, they're already out there rewriting history. This tactic works because narcissists are master storytellers. They remember just enough truth to sound credible, but twist the facts just enough to make you the villain in a story where they're the wounded hero. And the worst part? Some people will believe them. Even people you thought were neutral, even people who said they understood, even people who watched the dysfunction with their own eyes. That's the true cruelty of a smear campaign. It doesn't just attack your reputation, it isolates you. It makes you doubt your worth, your clarity, your memories. You find yourself wondering, should I speak up? Should I defend myself? Should I tell my side of the story? But here's the trap. That's exactly what they want. Because the moment you start defending, they'll say, "See, look how reactive they are. I didn't even name them. Why are they so triggered? I was just sharing my truth." They want you to panic. They want you to argue, because in chaos, they thrive. So what should you do? Don't defend yourself to people who already chose not to ask you first. If someone hears gossip and runs with it without ever checking in with you, they were never your ally. You don't owe them your truth. Instead, stay consistent. Let your silence speak louder than their noise. Let your calm, your clarity, your alignment expose the lies over time. Live well, live real, because the one thing a narcissist cannot fabricate is who you become after them. Remember, they need your reaction to stay relevant, so give them nothing. And when people ask about what happened, you can say, with peace, "Some chapters don't need to be reopened. I've moved on." Because you have. and that's exactly what they can't stand. After all the games the narcissist has played, the feigned innocence, the tearful remorse, the polished persona of growth, the emotional blackmail through threats of self-harm, and finally the smear campaign, what they ultimately want is still the same: to pull you back into their web of control. And you, who once loved them, once hoped for their better self, who tried to forgive, understand, and hold on, are now standing at the crossroads, asking the most important question: what do I do to truly be free from this? The answer doesn't lie in fighting them on every front. It doesn't lie in proving your side of the story, correcting every lie, or winning every mutual friend back. You don't have to scream louder, be more righteous, or suffer harder to prove you were the one who was wronged. You don't need to exhaust yourself trying to make the world see what you lived through. What you do need is a different kind of strength, a strength rooted not in resistance, but in release, not in noise, but in clarity. First, you must accept this: you cannot change them, not through love, not through logic, not through pain, not even through your absence. They won't heal because you broke yourself trying. They'll only heal if, and only if, they truly want to for themselves. You were never meant to be their savior. You are meant to be your own. Then comes boundaries. And not just spoken boundaries, but lived ones. You don't need to explain why you're blocking them. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't owe them a letter, a phone call, or an exit interview. Boundaries don't need approval to be valid. They only need your self-respect to be real. Do not react, reflect. Do not scream, stay steady. Let your calmness be the mirror they can't handle. Let your stillness show the truth louder than any words ever could. When you stop engaging, stop trying to be understood, stop hoping they'll get it, that's when you get your power back. Clean your circle. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone is meant to. Some people will choose the narcissist's side. Some will remain silent. Let them. Your healing does not need an audience. Keep the ones who saw you in the storm and stood still beside you. Lose the rest. Let this be the quiet curation of your new, healthier emotional ecosystem. But above all, return to yourself, because the deepest wound after narcissistic abuse isn't what they did, it's what you started believing about you, that maybe you're too much, that maybe you're not enough, that maybe you were the reason it all fell apart. You weren't. You were simply someone who gave too much to someone who only took. You were someone who loved someone incapable of returning it. Real healing begins the moment you stop waiting for their apology and start giving yourself the one you've long deserved. The apology that says, "I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I abandoned you to keep them. I'm sorry I stayed when it was hurting. I'm sorry I forgot you are worthy." That apology is yours to give and yours to live. Because freedom doesn't come when they finally say sorry. Freedom comes when you no longer need them to, when you live kindly, honestly, quietly, not to prove anything, but simply because that's who you are, when you no longer clench or explain or hope they'll understand. You just let go, you become free, and in doing so, you become untouchable. Let them tell their stories. You're busy writing a new one, and that is the greatest triumph of all, not winning the war with a narcissist, but walking away and realizing you don't need to fight anymore. You've walked through every stage, from love to heartbreak, from trying to understand to trying to save, from hoping they would change to painfully realizing they never intended to. And then you did the one thing they never expected. You stopped caring. You no longer react when they post vague, cryptic messages. You don't flinch when you see their name pop up. You don't get caught in the swirl of guilt, doubt, or emotional bait. You stop fighting not because you gave up, but because you finally won the battle to reclaim yourself. When a narcissist realizes you don't care anymore, not angry, not heartbroken, not afraid, they panic, because their power over you was always based on one thing: your emotional reaction. When you go silent, they lose control. So they scramble, they try everything, playing innocent, acting remorseful, pretending they've changed, threatening self-harm, smearing your name, all just to do one thing: pull your emotions back into their control, because when you don't care, you can't be manipulated, and to a narcissist, that is true loss. But do you know what's even more powerful? When you walk away, not just physically, but emotionally. When you don't live in reaction to them anymore, you become unreachable, not because you've hardened, but because you've awakened. Because you finally understand that love is not a performance, and kindness is not a weakness. You've learned how to choose yourself without guilt. You now know that not everyone who cries deserves forgiveness, especially if their tears are just a reaction to losing control, not true remorse. From the moment you stop caring, you are no longer part of their play. You're no longer a character in their drama. You are the one holding the pen, writing the next chapter. And that chapter doesn't include them. So, what happens next? They may keep trying. They may switch masks. They might spread lies, fake sadness, or find someone new to replace you. But this time, you're not playing. Because now you see the game for what it is. You stand outside of it. You move in silence. You live your life. Not to prove a point, not to get justice, but because peace has become more important than being right. Now, ask yourself, what kept you stuck before? Was it hope they would change? Was it your belief that you could fix what was broken? Was it love? None of that makes you foolish. It makes you human. It means your heart works. But now, your heart is working for you. Letting go isn't cold, it's healing. Sometimes the most powerful form of forgiveness isn't saying, "I forgive you," but simply no longer needing them to complete your healing. You don't need them to understand. You don't need their apology. You don't need closure. You are the closure. They might try to come back, but you won't answer. They might run the same script, but you've stopped watching. They might play victim, but you no longer play rescuer. You've taken your power back by refusing to be emotionally available to someone who only seeks to control. And that, right there, is the win. Not over them, but over the past version of you who thought love meant sacrificing yourself. Now you know, love shouldn't hurt like that. Real love doesn't cost your peace. You no longer need validation. You no longer chase approval. You no longer crave justice in the form of their regret. Because you've become whole without them. If you see yourself in these words, know this: you are not alone. Thousands are walking this path. Thousands are healing. Thousands are learning that love begins inside, not outside. Every time you don't respond, every time you choose silence over defense, every time you put your peace above their narrative, you're walking one step deeper into emotional freedom. If this video resonated with you, please subscribe, share it with someone who might need it, and keep choosing your healing, quietly, powerfully, and unapologetically, because you deserve a life where you no longer have to care about people who used your emotions against you. And when you truly stop caring, your silence becomes the loudest truth they can't ignore.